Welcome back, friends, to another episode of Lynch Paints, where I, Lynch, will be showing you all how to paint the Executioner Space Marine chapter. So, before we do start, I do have the announcement for the winner for my giveaway. That's at the end of the video, so if you want to watch this all the way through and find out who won at the end, it could be you. So, without further ado, let's grab our paints, paintbrushes, our axes, and let's get painting. But before we get started, we're going to need a selection of paints, and these are all the ones I've used in this video today. It's quite a lot, surprisingly. So, alongside which we're going to need a small fluffy brush, a big sort of knackered brush, we're going to need a basing brush, a small finer detail brush, and a teeny tiny brush for all of those teeny tiny places. So I'm going to start out with just going over this miniature in a black acrylic paint. So eBay is a fantastic way of getting your hands on some really cheap miniatures. I had left my can of black spray paint at work, so I'm a bit of a silly boy. So normally you have one of those to hand, so go ahead and sort of prime your model that way, and most of you would probably have one new as well. But if you're like me and like to try and find a bargain, then with going on eBay or sort of any kind of online sort of shop websites where they sell second-hand items, you can, depending on the model and the quality of the paint job, you could strip it, or you could just go ahead and just prime the model straight over the top with either a rattle can or just going over with your base primary colour with a bit of a scabby old brush like this. So it's going to go over the top. It doesn't matter too much that it's not going to be a solid black, because we're going to be going over with some metallics afterwards, but we just want to start out with a nice dark base colour going forward, and then we'll start to add on all the other layers afterwards. So now that the base colour is now dry, we're just going to move on to using some of this Iron Warriors base, so a nice kind of dark metal colour. And then using this old makeup brush, we're just going to do a nice heavy dry brush over the model. So I kind of looked at the colour scheme for the Executioners, and I couldn't quite decide whether it was a sort of like a dark grey or whether it was more of a metallic colour. So I thought I'm just going to go with a metallic colour, because the secondary is a nice bronze, but it's more of a kind of a bluey grey, but do have an excellent paint that should be able to achieve that sort of same sort of colourway. So I'm going to give this a go, see how it turns out. I think that the previous model, when I had ordered it, I think it might have been, or was going to be, perhaps a Black Templar, just because the majority of the colour was black, the shoulder pads were left white. So that's my best assumption, but it wasn't done particularly well. So who knows what it could have turned out to have been. But safe to say, it's going to turn out a lot better than when I first got it. So after the first dry brush, it's looking pretty good so far. Now, for the bluish grey, the metallic paint of choice for me is going to be some of this Grey Knight Steel. So it's a nice sort of bluish metallic colour. Now you don't need to wash out your dry brush between the different paints, because they're both metallics. They're both sort of very similar sort of colourways anyway, so you don't need to wash them out. Plus, dry brushes take forever to dry after rinsing them, which is kind of ironic, really. So again, we're just going to dry brush this colour just over the top, and we're going to sort of focus on the more of the raised areas. So we're going to leave sort of underneath the legs, this kind of bottom side, where the light's not really going to be touching in that first colour. So that's going to build up a little bit of contrast really quite nicely. And it's a nice easy way of maximising contrast as well without having to do an awful lot. You just paint less area, which is fantastic really, especially when you have many marines to paint. The less you can paint to maximise the painting level, the better. So at the minute, it's not as blue as I would like it. It looks more like the Iron Snakes chaps that I painted a few weeks back. So what I'm going to do is that I've got some of this lovely Guilliman glaze. If you can't get your hands on this stuff, because it had been discontinued quite a few years back, but I'm sure that there are other companies that do similar glazes. So I'm just going to apply this. We're going to thin it down with a little bit of water. And we're just going to apply this just over the armour panels. And when it's dry, we're going to see how it turns out. So just using a nice medium-sized brush, we're just going to just apply a nice finish layer over the top. So just while we're waiting for the blue glaze to dry, I'm just going to go over the weapons. So I've got some of this Avalon Black, and I'm going to grab this medium tone grey, so this Storm Vermin Fur, mix the two together, and then we're just going to go over the weapons. So I'm just going to go like this, just thinning it down with a tad of water. It's got a nice smooth consistency, and then we'll build our colours up just a little bit and then highlight with using the mid-tone grey. The glaze has taken a little bit longer to dry than I thought, so I thought what we could do is that we could just do a little bit of highlighting. So I've got some of the Rune Fang steel, a nice bright and vibrant silver, and then using a thin detail brush, I'm going to thin it down with just a little bit of water, and then we're just going to pick out some of the raised areas. So we don't have to do the entire model with highlighting, just picking out a few key areas to give the impression that it's all been highlighted. Unless you want to highlight the entire model, of course, it's entirely up to you, but again, if you've got sort of 30 of these to get through, then the more time saving that you can do, the quicker you can get your models out onto the table and looking really nice. So the blue glaze has finally dried, hooray! And it's actually turned out pretty darn nicely. So I'm going to just, with this black, just go over the Under Armour areas and just thin it down, just a little bit of water, just to tidy it up a little bit. And then we can do a nice simple dry brush just on the inside with a little bit of a dark metal. Something like the Iron Warriors or the equivalent of, just to darken it down and make it a little bit more distinct than the rest of the armour. Also, while we have our black, we're just going to grab some of this Mournfang brown, and we're going to do his belt and all of his little pouches. Just use a medium-sized brush and thin it down with a little bit of water, mix it so it's about 50-50, depending on how dark you want it. You can just add in more black, and we'll just go over, do a nice base coat, and then build up our highlights by introducing more and more of our brown. Now we're going to move on to the secondary colours. So it's a nice sort of
bronzy gold colour. So we'll start out with this Warp Block Bronze, which is a nice deep bronze colour. And I'm going to use I'd recommend using a brush that you're not too bothered about it fraying, because with the metallics, with the tiny little additions that they put into the paint to make the metallic shine effects, it can be quite difficult to completely get rid of from your brush. So don't use your best brushes for this step. So pick a brush that you're comfortable with, that you don't mind being completely wrecked, and then we're just going to go in nice and carefully and do the shoulder pads, the face grill, maybe a knee pad. And do you remember all that nice work that we've done on the backpack? Yeah, I completely forgot that the backpack is also in this same bronze colour, so I'm going to go over that as well. You can thin it down a little bit with some water just to help with the flow, and yeah, just crack on. So that's our layer of bronze done. What I realised is that it did require 2 coats, so again, just having it thinned down a little bit. And if you can, when applying your second coat, if you've gone, let's say, from top to bottom, with the second coat, go left to right. So that way you're minimalising streaking and sort of build up of streaking, and you get a smoother finish. So it's a little bit dark in a minute, so we're going to introduce some of this brass scorpion into our mixture. So again, to thin it down with a tad of water, we're going to take a little bit of each, perhaps a 50-50 mix, and then we're just going to see how that looks. And if it's a little bit too bright, we can always just darken it down by introducing more of the Warlock Bronze. So we're coming on to the final details here. So I've got some of this adamant raspberry grey, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to apply a nice simple layer thinly just over the aquila, and then we're going to go over the aquila? No, we're already doing that. The purity seal as well, and then we're just going to build up those colours and get them finished. And then we're going to add in a little bit of white just to brighten up our shades. And I'm just going to start just to highlight the raised areas, just kind of build the colours up before using pure white just to do the final little highlights. So now we're going to go and do the eyes and also the purity seal as well, the wax. One thing I noticed is that a lot of miniatures, a lot of Space Marines, they tend to mirror the colour of the eye lens with the colour of the purity seal wax. So I'm going to mix the black and the red together, make a nice dark red, and then just simply lob this on to there. And then with the eyes, you can swap out to a tinier brush if you like. And then with this dark red, we're just going to do the first half of the lens, just leaving the back part very, very dark. And then I will swap out to a smaller, tinier brush just for these next few steps. And then I'm just going to take pure red, because you don't need as many stages with this in terms of blending, because it's such a small area, you're not going to notice it. People aren't really going to see it. So we go from a dark red to a pure red, and then mix in a little bit of yellow, or just using just straight orange for the final little highlights as well. So we're just going to add a little bit at the very front of the eye lenses, and we're just going to try and curve it down so it's more towards the bottom
of the islands, a bit like that. So I've got some of this lovely squig orange. It doesn't have to be squig orange, it can be whatever kind of orange you have at hand. That's one I have to hand, so that's what I'm going to be using. So I'm just going to add a little bit of this. Now you don't need to wash your brushes out in between each paint, you can just keep it the same, just add in a little bit, see how it looks. If it's not bright enough, then you can always just add in a little bit more of your lighter shade just to balance it out. So that's purity seal done. And then with the island, we're just going to want a tiny little bit at the very front, just to simulate that glow. And again, if it's not bright enough, then you can just rinse your brush out real quick. Just go straight into the orange, and then just pick out those little tiny highlights. And then as a last thing with the eye lenses, we're just going to pop in a little teeny tiny white dot right at the back of the eye lens, and this is going to help to sell that reflective colour. Oh, words today. That's the eye lenses done, that's the purity seal done. You can add some squiggly text onto it if you like. I probably won't. So, ooh, Chainsword. Right, let's do that. So, just kind of forgot about the Chainsword. So really, all you got to do is, similarly to the bolt pistol, just dry brush the metallic parts with a nice dark silver. Where is my brush? Give it a nice little dry brush, and then add in any kind of weathering that you want on it. You could put some blood effects paint on it if you like, add in a bit of gore. I have seen people put on some stripes, so some little yellow stripes on there, which do look really nice. Which I might try out on a different marine at some point in the future. So I'm just going to kind of just drag just a little bit, make a few little scuff marks on there. Same on this side, can't quite. There we go. Cool. I think he's about done. So before we do finish off, of course, we're going to need to do that lovely logo on the shoulder pads. So I'll grab the paints I need and I'll be back in just a moment. Here we are at the final stage, so I'm just going to load up the image real quick, and I'm going to be freehanding it. So it looks fairly straightforward. So I'm just going to start out with this medium-sized brush, and I've got the miniature here, and yeah, let's go for it. So we started out from this old thing and turning it into this. So if you have enjoyed the video and found any kind of acknowledgement from it, then do show your appreciation with a like down below, subscribe if you're new, and comment which part was your favourite. Do you collect the executioners, and was this any good? I'd be happy to know down in the comments below, and I'll reply to everybody that does as well. If you do want to support me a little bit further, then you can, well, like and comment and subscribe. That's one of the best ways to help out my small channel that I've got here. But if you are extra kind, then I do have a super thanks button down below as well that you can click and donate, you know, maybe just like a couple of quid, however much you can spare is greatly appreciated and does mean the world to me as well. So if you wanted to pick up some Space Marines for yourselves, I do have a link down in the description below for Wayland Games. They're a UK based retailer and they stock all your hobby needs, so check it out over there, and a little bit goes towards me for you guys using the link down below, so massive thank you if you do. And there'll be some stills and reels of this miniature over at my Instagram page at Lynch Paints, so if you want to follow me over there, then you can do. It is free, of course. So now on to the contest winner. So the winner for the New Year's Lynch Paints giveaway goes to Front Room Gaming. So massive congratulations to you, and I will send you a message, let you know, and we can work out address details, bits and pieces, what you'd like as well as your sort of little starter force, and which Marines you'd like to have on display as a little kind of Lynch Paints memorabilia. So thank you ever so much everyone that took part in it as well. I'll probably do another one at the end of the year, or if we hit like a big milestone, like, you know, like 2,000 subs, that would be amazing. So I'd like to aim for that by the end of the year, so any help is massively appreciated. And as well, share this or any of my other videos with your friends. And yes, so without further ado, stay safe, stay beautiful, and we'll see you all next time.